Ear cropping a Doberman, it's certainly a controversial topic, and I've gone in depth into the pros and cons of this on my channel in the past, but today we're going to talk strictly about how much this procedure costs, all on the various stages along the way. And yes, the price itself can definitely hurt. Before we jump into this, guys, remember I am a dog trainer and not a veterinarian by any means. And in this video, I'm really just sharing my experiences of spending many hours recently talking with veterinarians who offer ear cropping services to Dobermans specifically. And so always make sure you consult with a veterinarian before making any decisions regarding your dog's care. I decided to tackle this question about how much a Doberman's ear cropping actually costs because I've been seeing some widely varying descriptions of prices that people are actually paying online for this ear cropping procedure for Dobermans, and it just didn't really add up to me. It didn't seem right. So I spent an entire day calling veterinarians from coast to coast. I spoke with 11 veterinarians in total, getting actual quotes for cropping a Doberman puppy in particular. So to cut to the chase, here are the 11 different veterinarian offices I spoke with, where they're located, and the price that they quoted me for ear cropping of a Doberman puppy. So as you can see here, there's a lot involved in what goes into the actual total cost of ear cropping a Doberman puppy, what you'll actually end up paying out of pocket. You're looking for the procedure itself at about $631 on average nationwide, based on the veterinarians we spoke with. And blood work, which is usually considered optional but almost always highly recommended by pretty much every veterinarian I spoke to, was an additional $107 on average. And look at, there's a good range there in prices too. Take a look. The cheapest we found was $370 for an ear cropping, and the most expensive was $1,072. That's a huge difference. But like I said, a lot more goes into this price than just the procedure itself, so let's break it down for you. Now, first up was a pre-surgery exam. Now, typically, this was included in the price of the surgery for most veterinarians. Now, most vets did want to see the Doberman puppy before they scheduled the ear cropping procedure. Some of them wanted to just examine the dog on the day of the surgery, and only one of them said that they would charge additional for this pre-surgery exam. But it's actually a really good thing that they want to do this pre-surgery exam, and it's good that it's typically included in the total price because this is where the vet is going to look at the dog's ears, determine if they're a good candidate for ear cropping, if there's a high chance of success. Specifically, they're usually looking at the ear cartilage itself to see if the dog's ear cartilage has firmed up yet or not. They check this because as the Doberman ages, their ear cartilage naturally just kind of firms up, and if it's already firmed up when they have their ears kind of down in the floppy position, then typically the ears are going to stay floppy and there's less of a chance of them succeeding to achieving the upright, erect ears. But if you can crop them early enough, the ear cartilage is still soft, then you post them in position. As the dog's cartilage firms up, then the ears will just stand on their own naturally, which is kind of what they're checking for. Now, during this pre-exam, it's also a good time for you to ask questions. They'll also go over the dog's health history usually and see if they have any risk factors for this procedure. Next up is a blood work. Now, typically on average, this will be about $107 additional. This is almost always highly recommended by most vets I spoke with, but optional and a little bit additional on top of the procedure cost. On occasion, it will be required, but usually it's optional. Personally, I would never get one of my dog's ears cropped without getting the blood work because it gives your veterinarian just a broader picture of your dog's overall health. And it was described to me as a great way to kind of just lower the risks of the procedure itself by your vet being allowed to have a deeper, in-depth picture of your dog's health before they ever even begin the surgery. Next up is the ear cropping surgery itself. This is obviously the bulk of what you're paying for when you're getting this procedure, and the average that I found was $631 for the procedure itself. Now, most veterinarians want you to drop your dog off in the beginning of the day and typically pick them up later in the afternoon. But one vet we talked to wanted to keep the dog overnight for observation, and actually one other vet wanted to keep the dog for 3 days before releasing the dog back to the owner to take home, which I thought was very strange. I'd never heard of before. That's definitely not typical, but most vets will get the cropping procedure done and the dog back to you the same day. Now, what this price included did vary a little bit from vet to vet, But in general, most vets just seem to include, of course, that initial exam I mentioned earlier, but also the general anesthesia, the IV, the catheter, the antibiotics, the pain medication, sometimes it's take-home medication, heart monitor during surgery, the cone or e-collar if they use that, although a lot of vets seem to be steering away from that as well because it can affect the ear with some pressure on the ears. Initial ear wrapping, the follow-up exam, and suture removal if that's required. Now, some vets did also offer something called a cold laser or therapy laser. They had different names for this, and I don't fully understand it myself, to be quite frank with you, but apparently it's some laser treatment they can do after surgery to really assist with the healing and of the actual ears itself. One vet we spoke to did charge an extra $15 for that laser therapy. Next up was a follow-up exam. Now, this is almost always included. Actually, only one vet we spoke to actually charged extra for this follow-up exam, but usually in the following days or maybe week or even slightly more sometimes, you'll return to the vet for the follow-up exam, and that's where the vet will remove the wrappings of the ear, remove the stitches if required, because not all vets are using the old stitches. Sometimes they're using dissolvable stitches that dissolve on their own, but they'll check the process of how the ears are healing and that kind of thing, and it's a great chance for you to ask more questions of your vet. Next up is the cost of the ear postings themselves. Now, this can cost anywhere between $15 to $65 per posting if you have your vet do it. Now, depending on how aware you are of this process, basically once you get your dog's ears cropped, you do have to post them in position until the ear cartilage firms up and the ears naturally stand on their own. This generally has to be changed. These postings have to be changed every couple days, maybe as late as every 5 days to 7 days. I've heard as late as 7 days before, but it depends on what your vet recommends. It really depends too if your dog gets dirty or the wrapping's wet, then of course it'll be more frequent. But during this time is when they swap the wraps out for a fresh set, they check the ears for any signs of infection, clean the ears, and then post them back into position. A lot of people who aren't familiar with this process will call those ear postings that hold the ears in position bandages because they don't really know any better. Really, that could be true in the first week or two after surgery when the ears are still healing. You could call those bandages, but after that point, they're really ear postings because their purpose is not to bandage the ears while it heals. The ears have already been healed at that point. It's just to keep them in position while the cartilage firms up. Now, changing the ear postings yourself can be a somewhat involved process, but after you've done it a few times, maybe with a little direction, it's not too bad. And that $15 to $65 per visit can add up a little bit. If you think about it, you're getting your dog's ears postings changed every, I don't know, handful of days or so, depending. And that can add up a little bit. Now, of the vets I spoke with, most of them included a couple ear posting changes for free in the price. One of them said they don't do ear postings at all, which I thought was a little unusual. And one of them included unlimited ear postings, which is kind of nice too. But I think almost all of them offered to tutor their customers in how to do the ear posting changes themselves at home, should they want to. One important note here, guys, is that most of the vets I spoke with wanted to crop your Doberman's ears between 7 to 9 weeks of age, when the puppy is right in that range. Some of them wanted to go, could go as late as 12 weeks of age, but most of them liked them on the younger side. Now, it's important to keep in mind that many of these vets are booked for many weeks in advance, especially because there's less of them now in the US. Sometimes you gotta do a little calling around to find one near you that does this procedure. So if, let's say you're calling around about your 8-week-old puppy, because you wanna get your 8-week-old puppy's ears cropped, and you finally find one, he could be booked out for weeks in advance. And let's say they're booked out 5 weeks, which isn't uncommon. Now you're talking about bringing your puppy in for an ear cropping when they're 13 weeks of age, which is potentially too late to even get the ear cropping. So keep that in mind. Call your vets early to make sure that you can get this done when the puppy is at an appropriate age. I hope this has been helpful, guys, but keep in mind this procedure isn't for everybody. In fact, there are a lot of drawbacks to getting your dog's ears cropped as well. And I did a whole video all about the pros and cons of getting your Doberman's ears cropped quite a while back now, but it's still a useful video and it could help make that decision as to whether or not to get your dog's ears cropped a whole lot easier. That video should be popping up in the corner of your screen, but I'll also, of course, have it linked to down in the description below. Before you run off, guys, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below and the little bell icon next to it. That'll tell the YouTube gods that you are enjoying this video, and hopefully they'll keep recommending some more Doberman Planet videos that might answer the next important question you have about your Doberman. You know, that question you just kind of thought about and you never searched for anything, you just kind of thought about it, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is in your YouTube feed. Yeah, kind of creepy how that works, huh? All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Please keep taking great care of your Dobermans, and of course, see you next time.